Tax Act is here anytime you want to easily file your taxes. Tax Act is here for the early birds who like to knock them out as soon as the season opens. And for the procrastinators who like to wait until the very last minute. Tax Act is also here for the middlers who file right in the middle of tax season. No one ever talks about the middlers, but Tax Act sees you, and Tax Act respects you. Tax Act, let's get them over with.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see two people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
Everybody, it is episode 550 of Horror Movie Night. Who would have thought?
What?
Here we are.
It's because no one has stopped us yet.
No one has stopped us. No one has said knock it off. And we decided, let's bring out a heavy hitter. Let's bring out a classic, a stone cold classic. At one point, Scott, I don't know if you remember this. At one point early in the show, like I think our first year, we talked about doing this as an April Fool's episode because at that point we were intentionally watching bad horror movies, and we thought doing something that is like so beloved as our April Fool's episode would have been hilarious.
That was the pinnacle, huh? Dang.
Yeah.
So this has got, there's lore to Suspiria on.
Yeah, we've been
Horror
holding
Movie
off
Night.
on this one for a bit. But I think even then we were like, we could still do a funny episode doing what we were doing at that time, because while this movie is a masterpiece in so many ways, it has also got some real cheesy moments, which I definitely made note of as I was writing this plot description.
Bro,
I think it's safe to say
Argento,
this was, yeah, I think it's safe to say this is none of our first watch of Suspiria from 1977. Yeah.
Although it is my second watch.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I watched it in high school, I want to say like freshman year, and I hated it.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no plot, blah, blah, blah. Like, I was like, it goes nowhere. It just looks pretty. I mean, and it kind of doesn't.
All that kind of still tracks.
Yeah, true. But like, it was so funny as I was like 5 minutes into it this time, and I was like, I have watched so much Italian horror since then, and I understand what they were getting at here. I mean, it's Argento, so it's Argento. Like, that's all there is to it, and so I think that my palate is much more mature.
Well, and that's the thing. I think I had a similar vibe. I watched it in college, and I thought it was fine. Like, I liked the kills, but plotting wise, I was like, I can't even fucking understand what's happening in half of this movie.
Yep.
And I think when the remake came out in 2018, I'm like, I think the remake is a more cohesive movie plot wise. Like it makes more sense. And I do think that there are amazing moments in that remake. But I've probably watched this movie more in the last 5 to 10 years than I have the first 30 years. Because I think I watched it in college and kind of wrote it off. And then I want to say almost 10 years ago, a friend and I were like, let's revisit movies that we were like lukewarm towards. So we had watched this and Saw in the same night. And I walked away being like,
oh, about Saw? I feel like no one was lukewarm about Saw.
I never liked Saw. And I walked away from that second viewing also not liking Saw that much.
Okay. Now, I'm not like saying that there's anything wrong with disliking Saw. I am not a fan of the series myself, but I feel like when the first one came out, everybody was like, oh my God.
Well, that's what it was. Everyone had such an oh my God, and I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it a year later when I rented it.
Okay.
And
did you already know the twist?
I didn't know the twist, but I also was like, this twist is good, but I still don't give a shit because I was bored to tears for an hour and 20 minutes to get here.
Okay.
So like, I think I just kind of walked away from Saw like whatever, and then rewatching it 10, 15 years later, I still walked away like equally whatever.
Yeah.
But Suspiria, I was like, I think I like that a little bit more. And then it kind of became this like, every 2 to 3 Halloweens, I would mix it into my October viewing.
Yeah.
And my appreciation would grow every single time. So let's dive into this, though. Suspiria from 1977 tells the story of Susie Bannon, an American ballet student, wishing to push herself, so she relocates to West Germany at one of the most elite ballet schools, whose name I will not be attempting to say at any point during this podcast, but I do welcome my co-hosts to give it a shot.
Not a hard pass. I will say how much I instead I will turn it over and say how much I love Jessica Harper. Just out the gate, God, she is just lovely.
There's a note coming up later where I do mention my love of Jessica Harper, but we're not there just yet.
And no one is surprised in the least from the listenership.
On her way to the school, Susie sees a student named Pat who is fleeing the school in terror. Pat goes to a friend's house for the night, but is still killed by a noose being thrown around her neck and her being shoved through a glass skylight. And Pat's friend is also killed from the falling shards. It's worth noting that Pat is attacked by a very hairy man, and her face is smushed against the window, which at first is a slightly unintentionally funny way. But it gets more and more horrific, and we get this gnarly close-up of her heart just being stabbed by a knife.
I was about to say, like, I think you saying that it was a hanging death is understating the fact that she's stabbed like 8 times in the chest, and so it's like insult to injury that she gets hanged, her like dead body, because she's pretty much dead by the time she gets tossed through that stained glass ceiling.
Yeah, there's a chance that the hanging doesn't work. You know, that's a long drop, and like we don't know. The stabbing for sure worked, but the hanging didn't. I had a T-shirt in college, late high school and college, that just had Suspiria with the hanging victim on, like, in blood on my shirt. It was black and white. I think it was Rotten Cotton actually had put it out when Rotten Cotton was a thing. And I remember, like, I had no fucking qualms about just like wearing that around. And you know, we're talking with horror fans who. Yeah, dude. I would. Well, I mean, I guess I went to film school, so maybe that was more. Okay.
Yeah.
But then I'm also at the same time
college. Gotcha.
Yeah, this was like I don't think I wore it in high school. I definitely wore it in college. But then it's like, just once I leave the safety of my art school basement out into Syracuse University, like that's not great. Like that's not a good look.
But that being said, while this is definitely like a horror fan's horror movie, and it's probably, you know, most normies out there are not going to know Suspiria, I would argue that this opening kill is like one of the most iconic opening kills of any film of the 70s.
Yes.
Like, this is, even as the years went by when I wasn't watching Suspiria, and I barely remembered anything that happened in the movie, I always remembered this scene and this sequence of events, because it is startling, and it, especially if it's your first giallo, you're like, this is shocking. Now, like, comparatively, this movie's kind of fairly tame in the grand scheme of some of the shit we've seen in giallo movies, but like, that hanging is brutal. Like, that close-up of her face as that noose like just tightens and like you see the last little bit of her life escape out of her face in that moment, you're kind of startled. It is shocking. Susie arrives to the school the next day. This is where she meets the head trainer, Miss Tanner, and Madame Blanc, the deputy headmistress. Susie also meets Sarah, Olga, and Pavlos, one of the school servants. After a random run-in in the hallway, she passes out in her first dance class. Here's where I have to make a quick note. I would never be one to criticize Jessica Harper, my favorite actress of the 70s, but her acting after being hit by that bright light as a disoriented person really leaves something to be desired.
Yeah.
It is.
Honestly, this is not her finest work.
No.
in this whole movie. And it's funny because she kind of does that move a lot, because I think that it's implied that they're either like, she's either being drugged or under a spell throughout a significant portion of the second act.
Yeah, I think she's been marked from day one as the next sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah. As soon as she was hit by that downpour and got into a cab, like, we just know then right then and there
things aren't going to go well.
Things aren't going to go well
for Jessica. And this is 3 years after Phantom of the Paradise, so we know that she can act.
Oh yeah.
I wonder if there's a bit of a language disconnect, right? Because I think she's one of the only American actors in this Italian production. So, you know, I don't know. I've always been, Kyle, maybe you have more insight on this. Like, for these giallos where they're bringing in like a Jennifer Connelly or they're bringing in a Jessica Harper, they're shooting this with the intention of this being released in English, right? Or are they all speaking Italian and then a bunch of them are overdubbing it in English after it's been shot?
No, it's getting ADR'd. It's English getting ADR'd over English. They're just
because I was going to say it's very clearly ADR'd the whole, like, almost every line.
That's almost every single giallo and Italian horror movie that we've watched on this show is.
Yeah, it's part of the charm, I've learned.
Yes,
I actually, you know what? Credit where credit's due. I never have to complain about not clearly hearing what someone's saying in any of these Italian horror movies.
It's just watching their mouths being almost right is the part that is. I think that's where the annoyance came from when I was a kid trying to watch stuff like this, and where I get a bit of extra enjoyment because it's charming in its shittiness.
Yeah, 100%. And again,
there's nothing more you can do.
Yeah, this is one of the better ones we've watched. But there's not much that they can do about it.
I watched because I've seen this movie a ton. I decided to watch it with a commentary track for this, and they were talking about how Suspiria particularly, Argento was doing fine in Italy with his earlier films, and Deep Red was the thing that kind of got him, that mixed his giallo in with more supernatural horror and got more interest in the States. So then Fox was going to distribute Suspiria. And so there was a lot of more intentional American interest and English interest in this particular film. And that's why you get some of those weird TV spots, like the one with the skeleton lady. And
listen, don't spoil what the special features are clearly going to be.
You're right. The bubble letters, the breathing letters, and they knew how to market it. And then also originally this was written with the mindset that it was going to be like 12, 13, 14-year-old girls at a ballet school, right? Yeah. But then Fox was like, hey, like, we can't.
If it's going to be 12-year-olds.
We can't do that. So he saved that for 10 years down the road when he did
with Phenomena. Yeah.
It's so you just brought this up, and I want to go on just the briefest tangent, but I think the worst, well, not the worst, there's a lot of terrible things, but one of my least favorite things that we lost when the streaming wars really kind of killed television is the TV spot, right? Like, because even in an age where trailers spoiled everything, which was even happening in like the 90s and the 2000s, I have always loved the creativity of the, like, you've got 25 seconds to sell someone on this movie as they are like watching The Simpsons. And you do get, like, you're describing that Suspiria. The 70s and 80s horror TV spots are genuinely some of the most enjoyable pieces of promotional material you can find.
No, they are. I love
the Magic one is like still one of the best.
The Magic one is so good. The Suspiria one is really good. There was one for well, I guess it wasn't the TV spot, but the Leatherface Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, that was a promo that the movie was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that we wanted
that
from the movie,
I don't
we
think
did not
was
get.
shot.
No.
Yeah, I don't even think the movie was filmed. They were just like, we're making one. Here's the
That
here's
was
for the
basically
VHS
like
tapes.
That was the elevator pitch that never happened.
That might be a fun thing to do. Go through and find some of the best TV spots and put that together.
You could do like a top 10 TV spots video or something. Oh yeah.
At least maybe just from our 550 episodes, just kind of go through and see what has. I would love. I mean, I wonder if there's a new art. Well, I don't know if it's really going to be an art per se, but having the TikTok spot. Like, what can you do in 5 to 10 seconds to sell? You do
your
see
flick,
those
sometimes. Well, I don't know. I don't see them all the way, but I do see the first 3 seconds when I log into TikTok and an ad starts playing, and then I fly past.
3 seconds, man. You are slow to the draw when it goes in.
I hear a scream and I say, "What's this about? Whose video is this?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's right. It's an ad. Move." Anyway, so that night, maggots from some spoiled food spill on everybody from the ceiling.
Argento, you pervy boy.
Yeah, and the girls are forced to sleep in the gym for the night. We get a couple pieces of exposition, but the basic gist is that Sarah tells Susie that this labored breathing that she can hear past the curtain is actually the breathing of the head mistress, who she's not met. A couple days later, the blind pianist is fired after his seeing eye dog bites Madame Blanc's nephew Albert. And that night, while walking his dog turns on him and basically rips his throat out.
Yeah. Bad dog.
Yeah. Sarah tells Susie that she was Pat's former roommate and that the reason Susie had to spend the night in town when she first arrived, because when Susie gets there, someone over the intercom says, like, "We don't need you here. Come back tomorrow," whatever. She promises to show Susie the notes that Pat had left behind, but when she goes to find them, they're missing. She's then chased by someone whom she can't see, and she runs to hide in the attic, but then falls into a pit of razor wire, which hilariously, she does not look before just jumping into this pit.
Yeah,
it's like
it's a surprise for her and the viewer that it's there. And that's my favorite scene of the movie. Always has been, always will be. But, it's just so crazy that, like, I don't know. I've never stayed at a ballet school, but it seems an odd thing to have like a floor full of unspooled razor wire at a dance school. And then of course, to add insult to injury, the killer slits her throat as she's trying to get out of the room.
As if the razor wire wouldn't get the
it's
job
just so
done eventually.
Overkill. Like all of the kills are overkill. At least for the girls.
That's part of the fun to a certain extent.
Now, did you read the little bit of info about that shooting that scene that was obviously not real razor wire. It was just wire. And a lot of her panic was because she was getting stuck in the wire.
Yeah. No, I mean, I didn't read that, but I was thinking about, there's a later scene where Susie's attacked by a bat. And I'm like watching it. I'm like, that's a real bat that is just screeching at Jessica Harper for an uncomfortably long time. Yeah. In a normal movie, this would be like a 10-second bat scare. And in this movie, it's like 4.5 minutes.
Well,
it's
the same Argento. Thing. He loved nothing more than to torture young women with creepy crawlies.
Or
Well, I
letting
mean,
an ape bite their fingers off.
The other side of that is the bat did have a contract and needed at least 3 minutes
That
of
is true.
screen time.
You got to work past the animal
or the
wrangler
age requirements,
contracts.
because was the bat old enough so that it wasn't working too long? If it was a minor, Argento doesn't give a shit. It's 1977.
This is the 70s. You don't give a shit.
All right. So Sarah's sudden
No
disappearance.
bat child labor laws.
Sarah's sudden disappearance makes Susie suspicious, so she goes to find Sarah's friend, Frank, the exposition machine Mandel.
Oh, yeah.
And he tells
Hell of a
Susie
suit.
the entire history of the school, specifically that the school was established in 1895 by Helena Marcos, who was believed to be a witch. Something that's crazy to think about, and I don't know if you guys took the time to think about this, but he's like, the school was established in 1895, and me in 2026, I'm like, man, that's so long ago. But then it dawned on me that was only like 88 years ago from when this movie came out, which is like, when you hear like 1895 and 2026, you're like, anybody that helped establish that school's long dead. But it's like, oh no, like I guess feasibly kids who attended that school when it first opened would possibly still be alive today.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was just a weird thought I had. But then she also talks to the professor of the occult. Every college has one. And he tells her that a coven draws its power from its leader, but if the leader is killed, the coven will very quickly perish. By the time Susie returns to the school after just an info dump, she finds that the entire school is empty. Taking advantage of the basically abandoned school, she explores Madame Blanc's office and finds a hidden corridor. There, she finds all the instructors being led by Blanc and are plotting her death in the form of a human sacrifice. She finds Sarah's disfigured corpse while trying to hide, but then is chased by Pavlos. She hides in a bedroom that turns out to be the bedroom of Helena Marcos, who ends up being the headmistress based on the labored breathing that she heard earlier.
Sleep apnea is rough.
Helena is awoken when Susie breaks a decorative peacock nightlight.
It just looks
and
cool.
my
That's all
God,
he cared about.
I just want to give a quick shout out here to whatever man, because I'm fully in belief that it is a man voicing Helena Marcos's like 150-year-old corpse. It's like, you thought you could kill Helena! You thought you could kill me! Like, it's amazing. This is when Marcos turns herself invisible and reanimates Susie's corpse reanimates Sarah's corpse to attack Susie. So many S words. People whose names start with the S are servants of snakes. There's a bright lightning flash which reveals Marco's silhouette, and Susie is able to stab her in the neck, causing her death and causing Sarah's corpse to disappear and the academy to explode. And thus we draw to the conclusion of Suspiria 1977.
Well done. Well done. You could have got lost in the sauce. You could have got tangled up in the razor wire of it all. And
I'm glad
very
you did
succinct.
it, not me, because honestly, I would have been fucked.
Listen, I'm going to tell you a little
tough,
bit of my
dude.
secret. A lot of it is watching the movie and having the wiki opened up to the plot summary right next to me and making decisions in real time of, this is unnecessary details in the Wikipedia from my watch right now. So I'm going to just remove those details and just get into the nitty gritty.
We all have that dream trip we've been wishing we could go on. But too often, life, or usually price, gets in the way. That's why Priceline is here to help you turn your dream trip into reality. With up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights, you can book everything you need for your next adventure. Don't just dream about that next trip. Book it with Priceline. Download the Priceline app or visit Priceline.com and book your next trip today.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Your little one grew 3 inches overnight. Adorable. Also, expensive. Sell their pint-sized pieces on Depop. and list them in minutes with no selling fees. Because somewhere, a dad refuses to pay full price for the clothes his kids will outgrow tomorrow. And he's ready to buy your son's entire wardrobe right now. Consider your future growth spurt budget secured. Start selling on Depop, where taste recognizes taste. Payment processing fees and boosting fees still apply. See website for details.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see two people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
We're making an ad.
Napping ad.
I hear that Gary Sinise is free.
Oh, okay, great.
He hasn't worked since 2020.
So, what would be the script that we would have Gary Sinise say for the Napping Through Happy Hour podcast?
Listen to this damn show. Damn it.
The Napping Through Happy Hour podcast brought to you by Geekscape.
Real life, real drama, real time.
I'm Gary Sinise.
That's the ad. That's the ad. That's the ad.
Speaking of getting things to the nitty gritty, what would you guys double feature this? I did the plot summary, but this wasn't specifically my pick. So I want to go last. I want you guys to go first on this one.
Okay. I'll jump in. This was hard. Like, I don't really, when I think about it immediately, I'm just thinking of other Argento work. Like, he's very, and this feels like such a singular, specific film that is not touched by many other things. But what I could do is I could go and watch the Argento version of 1978's Dawn of the Dead. And I feel like that would be kind of just a fun horror historical side-by-side piece without getting too deep into the thematics of it.
All right. Scott, how about you?
So I originally had something else planned, but as we've been talking about how kind of inconsequential the plot is for this movie and how it's really just about vibes and visuals, I think that it would make a lot of sense to do Phantasm with it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Not
nice.
what I would, I mean, I don't know if that would actually be the night that I would want, but it'd still be a pretty damn good night.
I think
fun.
I think it's interesting as we're sitting here and like as we've been doing more and more Argento movies, it's like I can movie critic say that this is like the 4.5, 5-star movie that is shot beautifully and is like probably Argento's best film, while also knowing that 9 times out of 10, if you put those 2 movies in front of me, if you like, I'm going to go with the other movie. Every single time, whether it's picking up Phantasm or picking up Phenomena or picking up most of his movies. Actually, if you put any Argento movies in front of me, I'm going to pick almost any of them over.
Well, no,
Suspiria.
Phantasm isn't an Argento.
It isn't. But I get what you're talking about. It has a very similar vibe.
It really does.
I'm going to give you guys, listen, if you have not watched a bunch of the big horror movies from 2025, you should hit the 30-second skip button because there's a slight spoiler here. but I'm going to pick another movie that I was really into and then was like, oh, it's about witches, Weapons.
Fair. Yeah.
That's a good one.
Just, I don't know. That's always, there's a Simpsons joke where one of the writers of a show says, anytime you're confused by why that happened, just think that a wizard did it. And that sometimes feels like the explanation to supernatural things in a lot of horror movies, where someone like writes themselves in a corner and they're like, but if a witch did it, then everything's okay.
Right. If you want it to be based in reality, it's a dream. If you want some fantastical supernatural element, it's a witch or a wizard. And I think I think those are great problem solving tools.
And again, I like both of the films the one that we watched and the one I'm suggesting is a double feature, but they both have a similar, oh shit, I've got to find a way to make this make sense.
It doesn't need to make sense because it's magic.
Exactly. Speaking of magic, come to Creature Feature Weekend, March 20th to the 22nd for a magical time with your horror movie night team. We'll be there doing panels and all that good jazz. And Kyle, you have something to promote as well, I believe.
Yes. So if you are not making it down to Pennsylvania, but you're up in New England, my short film, Always On, will be playing at the Norwalk Film Festival that same weekend, the 21st and the 22nd. And then we're also playing New Bedford Film Festival. The festival is April 9th through the 12th in New Bedford, Massachusetts. It's a film it's a comedy short film that I directed and friend and fellow podcaster Evan Fonseca wrote and stars in it, and we're really excited because this is the beginning of our festival run with it this year.
I got to see it last year. Yeah. It's so good.
Thank you. It's a little bit different than what I've done in the past, but there is definitely some elements of what I bring to the table. There's a fun In the Void scene that has some fun horror elements, and then we do some really wacky, shot on dead media stuff. And then there's also some heart to it. So I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy about it, and I'm glad that we're going to be at least starting in New England and then hopefully taking it out elsewhere.
Love that. Also would love if you guys went to hmnpodcast.dashery.com, buy some shirts. We just uploaded, I don't think we ever said this on the show, we uploaded like 6 8-bit horror movie designs on there that I think are cool as hell. So you should go and check those out. Also, hit us up on our socials, HMN Podcast, on basically every social media app that you can think of. Go to Patreon, patreon.com/HMN Podcast, and visit our website at hmnpodcast.com to see our entire back catalog. And now, before we wrap up episode 550, I must ask you guys, what is something that you watched, listened to, read, etc. that you want to talk about?
Speaking of Don Coscarelli, I just started it, but my excitement and my enjoyment already is through the roof. I started True Indie by Don Coscarelli, which is sort of like his memoir and almost broken down into like little vignettes of him doing no to low to some budget filmmaking, but really doing everything completely independently, like through and through. And it's really, it's inspiring. It's weird. It's like, how the fuck did he do that? I think if you've read any of like Lloyd Kaufman's stuff about filmmaking, you'll like this. If you haven't, you'll still like this because I think it's also a little less involved as Lloyd's is, even though Lloyd's, just for those who have been looking into sort of like low budget or no budget filmmaking stuff from the past, it's really a great collection of stories and anecdotes and stuff from Don Coscarelli and from the Phantasm series particularly so far. But I know that he's going to be getting into, Bubba Hotep and the Beastmaster stuff and so on. So so far, so good. Really enjoying it.
Love that. How about you, Scott?
So I couldn't sleep the other night, and I was like, I just need something. And I was scrolling around on, I want to say HBO Max, and popped on Werewolves from, I guess that was 2024. Did you guys watch that movie with Frank Grillo?
I don't think I did. No.
It is very silly. It's got a lot of gun violence. The director it's his only horror movie. Well, it's a horror action movie, but it just the guy mostly does like gun violence action movies anyway, so that's fine. It has a really convoluted plot, but the concept is that there's like, it's 1 year later from the day that a supermoon turned 1 billion people in the world into werewolves, and
Whoa.
tons of people died. Tons of people were murdered by werewolves, and so a new supermoon is coming, and Frank Grillo. Honestly, I think this is the biggest logical leap that I had in the movie. He's a scientist. I don't think of Frank Grillo as playing a scientist very often, but he's a scientist, and he is trying to create. They have created a thing called moon block, which is basically like, or moon screen rather, I think is what it's called. And it's basically like sunscreen, but it keeps people from turning into werewolves during the supermoon. It works until it doesn't. And then he has to go across town, because it's in San Francisco, but this is happening worldwide, to try to save his sister-in-law and niece from their neighbor who has turned into a werewolf. Because like there are a bunch of werewolves and they work as packs. So there's a lot of gun violence. It's very funny because the werewolves they look awesome. First of all, like they're almost exclusively. I think that they're almost exclusively practical. There's probably CGI added, but I will admit that the transformations are shitty, but the actual werewolves are sick. Like for 2024.
It looks kind of cool.
I'm really impressed with the way that the werewolves looked when they were actually werewolves. The werewolves are basically able to take a clip from an AR-15 and not go down, but then some people can go one-on-one with them. So it's a very silly movie, but it also really feels like a 90-minute movie. I don't know if it was longer than that, but it felt like a 90-minute movie and kind of like, got to the point. I enjoyed it thoroughly. Was not expecting to even finish it without falling asleep, but I was like up at 3:30 in the morning, like, wow, this is kind of fucking fun, So it's a soft recommend.
Nice. Love that. I am gonna go off the horror beaten path, which I feel like I've been doing a lot this year, but that's fine.
That's what this show's for.
I've learned, I talked about this earlier when we talked about Wake Up Dead Man. I've learned that one of the things that seems to always do it for me is a murder mystery where it is the world's most intelligent detective solving the case, whether it's like a Murder on the Orient Express adaptation or any of the Knives Out movies. And I had heard good things about this show on Netflix, so Barb and I finally watched The Residents. Have either of you watched or even heard of this?
Nope.
No.
So the premise of this 8-episode show is that someone is murdered at the White House during a state dinner, and they have to bring in a detective to solve the mystery. What I think is fascinating, and I didn't realize this until halfway through it, this is based on a book, but it's not based on a fictional book. Like, it's not like, oh, there's already this murder mystery book. It's based on a book from like 2004 about the employees of the White House. Like, a journalist did this whole thing about like all the hidden secrets of how the White House operates and like where the secret passageways are. And I guess someone read that book and was like, this is like Clue. Like, this house has secret passageways. So they took that book as a blueprint and crafted this very intriguing murder mystery of like what happens when the head usher of the White House is murdered. And there is a reason for every employee, including the president and various high-powered people, to have been the reason why this man was murdered. And like, it's got that nice... There's like that nice blurring the lines of political satire where the whole show is being told by a Senate hearing because the murder was declared a suicide, but everybody's questioning it. and like Al Franken plays one of the senators on the committee, which is like
That's
a great
yeah.
piece of stunt casting there.
Yeah.
But then there's an actress there who's playing a character named Marjorie, who is a conspiracy theorist who's obsessed with like they have these nice little like without ever actually addressing what's happening in our world, like there's still those little political jabs all throughout it where you're like, oh no, I was really, really charmed by it. So if you're a fan of something like Knives Out, this is a nice, like, I would not say like sit down for a weekend and watch it because they are like heavy episodes, but maybe say like all this week we're going to watch one episode a night and like keep the mystery alive over 8 nights. It's a pretty fun watch in that lens. We even got the kids kind of invested. They weren't watching the first 4 episodes, but then when they were like, we don't know what to do. And we were like, well, we're really invested in this murder mystery, so we're going to put on an episode. And then they were like, can we, I want to know who killed that guy. So I do recommend it. It's not a bad time. And speaking of not a bad time, we've done 550 episodes of Horror Movie Night, and I don't think we show any signs of slowing down. I know that we don't because we're doing an episode next week. So tune in next week for even more Horror Movie Night.
You've been lost in the woods for hours now, stumbling around in the dark. You come around the bend and see 2 people roasting marshmallows over a roaring fire. They see you coming into the clearing and gesture over to pull up a log. Welcome to Campfire Ashes. I'm Paul.
And I'm Jess. Join us as we tell each other our originally written spooky stories around the campfire and then dive into the lore and legends that inspired them. Is it something that goes bump in the night? Is it something menacing lurking past the tree line? Or is it just weird and otherworldly? You'll find it here on Campfire Ashes.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or right here on the Geekscape Network.
What's up, everybody? This is Brian here to tell you about our podcast, Bingetown TV. Our hosts include 7 best friends with a love for all things television. We cover a range of genres with a focus on fantasy and sci-fi, but also dip our feet into drama, horror, comedy, and pretty much anything we think is good television. We use the traditional deep dive formula for new live shows that are released week to week, but our calling card is our Rooks and Vets and Pitchtown TV series. Rooks and Vets pairs 2 of our hosts that have seen a show with 2 of our hosts that have not seen a show. Pitchtown TV is when we have a special guest pitch us a show by having us watch the pilot and trying to convince us to watch the rest. If you're craving more content on some of your favorite TV shows, then you should listen to Bingetown TV. Find us on our website at bingetowntv.com, the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, or wherever else you may find your podcast.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.